Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I am so angry at my sister in law that words are not enough to express my feelings. I've always treated her nicely, even when she irritated the hell out of me. I never once confronted her about her peculiar behavior or her habits of copying everything I did. But then she dared to go ahead and ask me such ridiculously stupid thing that I had no choice but to kick her out. But after seeing the look on her face, I think I behaved rashly and should have just tried to be civil. So I want to know if my actions make me an a-hole or was my anger justified? I've been married for 3 years, and in all that time, I've come to terms with my sister in law's clingy behavior. Initially, when I first met her and she visited my house for the first time, it was very uncomfortable for me to watch her do exactly what I did. But over the years, I have stopped paying attention to all her quirks and her actions. Although it sometimes does get a little bit frustrating to watch someone behave exactly like you do, I thank God every day for giving me patience. Without it, I would have probably ended up snapping at my sister in law in the first couple of weeks she was living with us. She used to dress exactly like me and would even beg me to go shopping with her just so she can buy twin clothes for us. Not only that, she'd ask me from time to time about the rings and other accessories I'd be wearing and where I got them from, just for me to find her having the same things after a few weeks. That was really annoying and confusing for me in the beginning, but I let her, thinking that she would grow out of it. After all, she was 20 at that time. But now it's been 3 years and she still hasn't changed. She still tries to copy all my styles. She orders the same coffee I do and has even followed my Spotify playlist. It's all so extreme when it comes to her that I finally asked my husband a while ago whether I should be worried and talk to her about finding her own identity. But all he said was that she has always been this person. She'd come to admire a person and copy them completely until she grows out of it and eventually follows someone else. He said that they were actually worried about her when she was a teenager, but their parents decided against taking her to a therapist since her mannerism never affected her life or anyone else's badly. It's her own way of being confident, and they let her be. Hearing him say those things made me keep my mouth shut and leave her be. But last night, something happened that made me completely lose my temper. I never imagined that her habit of copying identities would take her so far. So, a few weeks ago, I found out I was 6 weeks pregnant. Last night, around the dinner table, I announced my pregnancy to my family. Everyone was really happy, and they were all fawning over me like I was a delicate flower. Both my mother in law and father in law were hella happy, and they even shed some tears because this was going to be their first grandchild. My husband already knew about me being pregnant, but still ended up crying with them. All this while I noticed my sister in law wasn't really that into the news and excused herself early to go out for fresh air. For the first time, I saw her not be excited about something relating to me. But I thought it's a good sign if she's finally moving on and will leave her creepy habit behind. If only I knew how wrong I was. This morning, when I came down to have some breakfast, she told me she needed to talk to me. She said there's something she needed to ask me to do and it's time conscious. I told her, of course, we can talk, and sat down at the kitchen table. She hesitated a little bit until I took her hand and told her to tell me anything, and if it's in my power, I'd help her. She smiled weakly and told me that she was thinking about my pregnancy. She told me she has always admired me and has looked at me as a sister. She said that she wanted us to reach every milestone in our lives together as sisters, and so far, she's the only one who has been going out of her way to make sure we do everything together and in the same way. But now that I have a bun in the oven, she can't do anything about it, and it's my turn to sacrifice so that we can reach this milestone together too. Then she told me that she'd like me to abort my baby or put it up for adoption so that we can coordinate our timings of being a mom in the future. The audacity of this person to come to my face and ask me to get rid of my child? I couldn't believe she actually thought, even for a second, that it's a good idea to put her thoughts into words. All my pent up frustration and anger from all these years being imitated burst out, and I screamed at her. I asked her if she's finally gone on to lose her mind completely. How could she even think this was a good idea? To ask her mother such a horrible thing and then do so with a smile on her face? Were there no limits to her disgusting behavior? I asked her to leave my house before I completely blow my fuse and actually go violent. By the time I was done, she was reduced to tears. She picked up her things and ran out of the house. My husband had come down after hearing the loud noises and asked me what was going on. I told him everything his dear sister just said to me and told him to sign her up for therapy while he still can. He was stunned into silence after hearing me tell him everything. Then he tried to get me to calm down and relax. He told me he talked to his sister and his parents. Finally, after an hour, I was able to calm my heart. All this while, I was only thinking of my baby, who already had made enemies, it seems like. But when I calmed down a little, I started reflecting on how I reacted. Now, I feel like, in retrospect, my sister in law seems like a problematic individual, and instead of getting angry at her, I should have talked to her and gotten her the help she actually needs. Am I the a hole here for reacting the way I did? Should I just think about myself and the safety of my unborn child? For a whole week after I kicked out my sister in law, my husband wasn't able to reach her. He tried calling and texting her, but she didn't pick up or reply. Our initial plan was to talk to my sister in law before talking to my in laws, but because she was unreachable, I told my husband to directly talk to his mom and dad in the hopes that they'd be able to talk to my sister in law. My husband told me yesterday that he finally talked to his parents about what happened, and they had promised to talk to my sister in law about her behavior and how she should really stop copying people she admires. They also said that they would tell her to get professional help for her behavior. So let's see how things turn out to be. I can't believe what my husband just told me. Apparently, my in laws were able to contact sister in law and asked her to come home because they needed to talk with her. When she went back home, they sat her down and told her about how they know everything that happened between me and her. They told her she was in the wrong and how we aren't angry with her, but just want to help her. They even tried explaining to her that her habit of blindly imitating the person she admires, or to constantly keep changing her personality, can be from unresolved issues and how she should seek help for that. They said they are willing to pay for everything and she doesn't need to worry about the expenses and just focus on getting better. But my sister in law didn't take what they said in a positive way. She got mad at them and told them they are trying to label her as insane when she is completely fine. She stormed out of the house after that and hadn't picked up their calls. So my in laws finally called my husband and told him how the talk went between them and my sister in law. They said that there's nothing more they can do for an adult, even if that adult happens to be their daughter. They can't force her to seek help, and that's why the only last resort they can think of was getting me to talk to the sister in law. But my husband instantly denied that option. He said there's no way he'd allow his pregnant wife to meet a person who wanted their baby to be dead or gone. When he told me this, I couldn't believe my in laws would even think of asking me to help. It's all very shocking, and I don't know if I can take any more stress. I talked to my husband about sister in law a little more, and we both came to the conclusion that if a 23-year-old cannot understand what's good or bad, then even as family, we can't help her, especially when that family member had the audacity to ask me to give up my unborn child. That's why we'll just focus on getting through the rest of the pregnancy and live our life. I've never been this happy in my life. I can't believe a tiny thing could be this precious to me. Last month, I gave birth to a baby girl, and since then it has been nothing but chaos. It's like all I want is for her to go away while I get some sleep, but at the same time, I never want to let her go. My emotions are all over the place at the moment. I also wanted to tell you guys about my sister-in-law who came back into our lives a few days ago. She called me and apologized to me for her behavior. She said that after we stopped talking to her, she reflected on her life and was able to find the courage to get the help she always needed. She said that it's still a long process and it might even be years before she completely heals and learns to be her own person. But for now, she does realize her mistakes and wants to apologize. She did ask if she could come and see the baby, but I told her I don't feel entirely comfortable with her and my baby being in the same room. Just as she needs time to work through the years of issues, I need time to trust her. I told her that I hope she'll understand where I'm coming from. After that, we caught up on our own life a little and then she hung up. I'm actually happy that she was able to get help, and there's hope that someday she'll be an aunt to my daughter. NTA, I don't think you're the a-hole for kicking her out when she literally asked you to give up on a human life. If I was you, I would completely cut ties with her. NTA, I don't know why even in today's world people don't understand that patterns could be dangerous. How can parents watch their daughter pretend to be different people and think it's right to let her be? They should have encouraged her to find her own individuality. Mike, 33, and I, 32 female, have been together for 15 years, married for 8. We met through our mothers, who are both Scottish. We have always talked about wanting to raise kids in Scotland, but really enjoyed life in the US. When we moved in together 10 years ago, my family unloaded all their junk onto us. It was nice furniture, but bulky and large. We took it with a smile and used it until we got our feet under us. Then we tried to give the stuff back, but my family told me to keep it. No one wanted anything back. I put it into a storage unit, thinking I could give it to my sister or younger cousin. No one wanted the stuff back. I ended up being used as a dumping ground for a lot of old furniture. I had a huge storage unit we were keeping a boat in, but we sold the boat and filled it with furniture. I should have said no to stuff, but I didn't want to make people upset. We asked for about 10 years if people wanted this stuff back. So we assumed it was all junk. Mike got a job back in Scotland. I want to start having kids, so I said, let's just sell everything and move. We sold our furniture and the furniture in the storage unit. Mike has a friend who does restoration, and he paid us about $20,000 for everything. It was a lot of furniture. Mike has a friend who does restoration, and he paid us about 20K for everything. It was a lot of furniture. I know it was probably a great deal for Tom because he looked shocked. We agreed. I told him I wanted it gone, didn't have time or mental energy to worry about it, and good luck to him. Turns out the storage unit furniture was worth a lot more than 20,000. There were a few really valuable pieces in there no one told me about. They just handed them off and said to have fun. By the time we sold everything with our cars, we had a good 45,000 and we left. It wasn't until my sister called that I realized people were angry. She said she went to the storage unit and it was not opening. I told her we moved, so of course we didn't have the stuff. She said she just wanted the old rocking chair in there. I said it wasn't there because we sold it. She asked how much stuff we sold. I said all of it because we were not going to take ugly old furniture with us to Scotland. I kept a few trunks, but everything bulky was pretty much sold. We even sold our furniture in our house, which we did like, so. She said that all the furniture was heirloom and I got ripped off. I told her she had 10 years to claim what she wanted and she never did. So I was not worried. AITA? NTA, and as for the furniture being worth a lot more, it really only is to people who recognize, care about it. If you had tried to sell it on a marketplace or similar, you probably would have gotten less. NTA, you had this stuff for 10 years. By any law in the USA, it's considered abandoned. You told them to get it. They said no. You sold it. Money is yours. Don't feel guilty. My husband and I have been married for 7 years now. My daughter is 18. My stepchildren, who I call my children and who call me their mom, are 9 and 11 currently. My stepchildren's biological mother left my husband and the kids at the hospital when she had the youngest. My first husband, daughter's father, died when my daughter was 6 years old. My daughter doesn't love my husband or my stepchildren. That isn't to say she's being rude to them, but she is on the side of being distant and does have a closeness to me that has never extended to them. She's not rude. She doesn't go around saying it, but it's there. This is something my husband was aware of. We discussed certain things. I did put down boundaries that my daughter was not to be shamed if she never dropped a step and if she was closer to me overall. He told me that was fine as long as she was never a bully to or intentionally harmful to my stepchildren, which I understood. My daughter had grief therapy throughout her childhood after her dad's passing. Sometimes she included me, other times not. We also did some family therapy before our wedding, and after our wedding, just so we could be open, communicate, and see if there were any problems. Plus, it seemed like a good way for my daughter to hopefully feel safe to speak up if there were any concerns. She was honest about her feelings toward my husband and my stepchildren, but never said it in a way that stated she didn't want us to be married. Just that for her, it wasn't the same as it would be with our dad. So, what's been going on is this: my stepchildren have really missed my daughter. Using stepchildren for clarity only in the post, but IRL, I call them my children. They were used to having her around. So, my husband called and asked her to come for their first day of school and be there as their bigger sister. My daughter didn't want to do that and told him as much. My husband told her that they were starting to feel the lack of love she has for them, and it's her job to make sure they don't feel that way. She asked him how she was meant to do that, and he told her to love them and make them her real siblings and be there like she would if her dad and I had more kids together. When she continued to say no, I heard from both of them. I told my husband that he couldn't just call and pressure my daughter to feel a certain way, and he couldn't demand she come home because he said no. I told my husband that he couldn't just call and pressure my daughter to feel a certain way, and he couldn't demand she come home because he said so. I did suggest we maybe look at therapy for my stepchildren and keeping them focused on their friendships so they don't dwell on my daughter not being here. He told me I was letting her go away with mistreating his kids, that he accepted it for years, but that she's an adult and she should love them. She should put the effort in, and I should be ashamed of her for not giving two little kids who have known her their whole lives all the love and support a big sister should. AITA. If anything, it's his responsibility as an adult to handle his disappointment and not push blame onto OP's daughter because he can't force anyone to feel love when they don't. NTA. Also, have he and his children gone to therapy on their own? NTA, her behavior isn't abnormal, even if they had been full of siblings. She's nearly a decade older than them. That's a lot when you're a kid. And many 18-year-olds are busy living their own lives and aren't interested in showing up for their elementary school age siblings' first day of school. Heck, I'm only 4 years older than my full sibling, and we barely saw each other the year I was 18. Your husband's behavior is incredibly out of line, and he needs therapy much more than his kids do. Seems like he never fully processed his first wife's abandonment and is expecting your daughter to make up for it in some fashion. He's letting his feelings interfere with being a good parent to his kids. Otherwise, he would have helped manage their expectations, an important life skill for all of us, rather than just expecting another person to fulfill them. NTA, your husband is emotional about this because his kids are disappointed and it's very hard to see our kids upset. He sees an easy fix and doesn't understand why he's asking too much. What he doesn't see is that your daughter is also hurting. I learned from my own post a couple of days ago that we cannot dictate other people's feelings and actions. They are valid, just as our own are valid. It's not wrong of your husband to ask her to come home, but when she says no, he needs to respect her decision. She doesn't have to come home for the sake of the other kids. And for the first day of school? No. Try a family dinner or outing that doesn't solely revolve around the other children. Their feelings aren't more valid than hers either.